It's an honor to have you with us today to share your story and your accomplishments.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
You were in Gambia and you were on the Court of Appeals, and at some point there was a ruling in Gambia that brought a lot of attention, and there were consequences for you. What happened there?
Yes, I must say, let me start by saying that Gambia is a very friendly country. I'm talking about the lawyers, the indigenous and so on. It was a very beautiful, friendly country. And I love being there. But then, Yahya Jammeh was president at the time. And I mean, it was a terrible time for human rights, or for the absence of human rights, or for the breach of human rights. It was a terrible time. There were, I guess the man was fighting to keep his position as president because he was elected, so many, term after term after term. And he appeared to be afraid of opposition. And of course, there were other political parties and other people who felt he shouldn't have been there. And if you were in the judiciary in the Gambia, there was no way you were going to avoid some of those cases, because there was a lot of, strong arm tactics. They had this National Intelligence Agency or something like that, like a kind of secret police that kept monitoring people. People will speak in whispers and so on, a lot of breach of human rights. And of course, some of these cases ended up in your court. And if you didn't want trouble as a judge, you did what you were told. You just had to do what you were told. Like, I don't want trouble. Some of these politicians will be arrested, or opposition people will be arrested. They are taken before the courts. And you find that for being arrested for sedition, I mean, so some politicians said the president is an illiterate. And he gave a press interview, or he gave an interview to a newspaper or something, and it was published. He was arrested. A couple of them were arrested. And they said this is sedition, and so on and so forth. And these people are locked up, and they appear before a judge in the High Court. And the judge is so scared that he cannot even grant bail. He refuses to grant bail. And at that time, I was sitting in the High Court and also in the Court of Appeal. But of course, if you had done a matter in the High Court, you were not going to sit on appeal on that case. So I sat on appeal with two other judges, another Nigerian judge and a Gambian. And they went on and on. I mean, I said to them, listen, the first issue we need to deal with is the matter of bail. Let's give these people bail, and then we can, that's an interim thing. Then we can come back and look at the brief, all the points at issue in the appeal. And we practically quarreled about bail. And I told them, gentlemen, listen, you say we shouldn't grant bail. One of them said to me, if the High Court didn't grant bail, why should we? I said, because they have come to us appealing what the High Court did. That is why. So we are not here to endorse the High Court or whatever they've done. We are here to scrutinize what happened in the High Court. That is why it is before us, and that is why we must deal with this issue. And when you look at all the conditions for which you may withhold bail, none of them was present. Are these people going to interfere with ongoing investigations? Investigations into what? I mean, this is a case of sedition. This man said the president is an illiterate. What is there to investigate? He does not even deny it. So what investigation is he going to interfere with? Or are these people going to jump bail and not appear for their trial? No, you can take their passports away. And these people are very senior members of the community, big politicians. There's no way they can skip the country. So let's stop lying to ourselves and grant them bail, because that is the proper thing to do. So I think I railroaded them into agreeing to a grant of bail. And I believe that when we granted bail and adjourned all the other issues for deliberation, some people in authority must have gotten to them and they were angry about the bail. So next time around, when we were going to deliberate on all the other issues, these two gentlemen went behind my back and wouldn't turn up in the court premises. And I kept asking for them, calling them. I didn't get a reply. Let us conference on the issues that have been raised and come to a decision. I never saw any of them until the morning of the judgment. So the night before, when I realized what was happening, I sat up all night and tried to draft my own judgment. There were 4 points of appeal. So I looked at each one. I tried to find, a jurisprudence that would match my reasoning, my thinking. I couldn't even write a proper judgment. So what I did was I was writing them in form of notes, writing on each point, this is my reasoning, this is what the lawyer said, blah, 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 that kind of thing. So I put them on sheets of paper. And the next morning, I was, my two colleagues called me and said, oh, let's go in and give a judgment. And I said to the presiding judge, what judgment are we given? We haven't even started to consider the issues on appeal. He said, oh, don't worry about it. And then, I've written a judgment and our other colleague has also written something. So don't bother, just come and sit with us. So I went into the courtroom with them. And of course, the whole country was out there. It was a very big case. There were armed men everywhere, armed soldiers, policemen. All the lawyers in the Gambia were in the courtroom, in and out of the courtroom, every corner. So we came in and the presiding judge read a judgment refusing the appeal. And he said, oh, my colleague here has something to add. The second judge, who was Nigerian, also went ahead and read something. And then they said, well, this is the judgment of the court. The court will rise. And I said, no, I have a minority judgment. Wow. Now you could see everybody sat up again. So I started looking at my notes and went on and rendered some form of a judgment. And of course, I allowed the appeal on all 4 grounds. When we got up, the usual custom in Commonwealth jurisdictions, where we all get up, I don't know how they do it in the US. We get up when, the appeal judge, when you have more than one judge, we get up, we bow to each other and so on. And then we leave the courtroom and then bow to the court and leave the courtroom. We just got up, my other colleagues, everybody just quickly filed out of the room. So I followed them. We didn't even give each other a bow. I went to my office and sat down. And of course, I knew I was in trouble. Mm-hmm. And these NIA, National Intelligence Agency people, they were all over me. Whenever I left my office, I saw them standing outside my office. Whenever I got to my house, I saw them standing outside my house because they had this distinct uniform, although some of them would wear mufti, ordinary clothes. But I kept seeing them everywhere I turned. They were watching me. And I was saying to myself, I'm just a little judge here. I gave my opinion, but they believed that I was working with someone or some people or I don't know what. And of course, in the Gambia, there were a couple of other cases like that. Like there was a time a whole community was practically being dispossessed of their land. And it was an emergency matter. It came up like a human rights application. I had to run to the court in the afternoon to make a ruling and stop what was happening, that kind of thing. There were lots and lots of human rights abuses in the Gambia. And everywhere you turned. On one occasion, unfortunately for me, I think I had to order the Inspector General of Police to appear before me. And when he wouldn't, I was almost in the process of ordering his arrest. Can you just imagine that? So that's how bad it was. The authorities would not even comply with a judgment they didn't like. And they will criticize the judge and they will go all out. At the time that the case of the politicians happened, where I gave a minority judgment, my contract was being renewed by the Commonwealth. With the assent of the Gambian government, immediately after that ruling, they quickly sent a message, stop that contract.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I found myself being booted out of the Gambia, as it were. But I must say, again, the Bar Association was very, very much behind me. The Bar Association was extremely kind to me. They understood, and they gave me a big reception on my way out, but government couldn't wait. I think I was fortunate that I had been recruited by the Commonwealth. Otherwise, I may have ended up in the infamous, they have this prison, is it mile 2 or mile something prison that, people talked about a lot, So one, I wasn't Gambian. Secondly, I wasn't recruited by them. And the Commonwealth, too, was very supportive. And that is something I must say for the Commonwealth. When they send an expert, they send a judge to another jurisdiction, they have their eyes and ears on the ground. And they try very hard, or at least they did that in my case, to protect you. And so the Commonwealth was very supportive. And so that was my experience in the Gambia. But years down the line, a few years ago, while I was in Kenya, in the UN tribunal, the bar, I believe that was when Yaya Jammeh was kicked out. The Bar Association sent me an award. They wanted me to come, but I couldn't go. They sent me an award. And to tell the truth, it is the award I treasure most in every award I ever received. They said, this award said it was for outstanding professionalism and for, is this something like standing up for judicial independence. The day it was handed to me, I was alone and I shed tears.
I was going to say, you have me tearing up right now. Mm-hmm. You have me tearing up right now to know that you stood with that kind of courage, and then to get that award, which validated everything you had stood for, and so when someone asks, is it worth it? How would you respond? Was it worth it? You taking those courageous stands?
I think so. I know it was worth it. Let me go back to 2013. While I was in the UN, I was invited by the Chief Judge of Anambra State, the then Chief Judge of Anambra State, Justice Umadi. I was invited by him to come and speak on, case management, to the judiciary. So, and they paid for my flight back to Nigeria, back to my home state, from where I had started running. Mm-hmm. So I came back, and when I was called upon to speak, I was only going to talk about case management anyway, But when I was introduced, the Chief Judge stood up and said, no. He said, I need to make this introduction by myself. That was the Chief Judge talking. So he came up to the podium and he said, all of you know Nkem. She's one of us. She's part and parcel of us. She's been with us, from the beginning. And we know when she left this country. And I just want to acknowledge her courage, her courage. I want to acknowledge her sacrifice. I want to acknowledge, he went on and on. Oh my God. And I said to myself, these were my colleagues, who were there. And he said, Nkem almost gave her life for judicial independence, and we all know it. I want to underscore that, and I want to acknowledge it now that we're all seated here. And after that, I was called up to speak. I think it took me a good 2 minutes to get myself, my whatever back. And this is why I look back and I know that it was well worth it. Mm-hmm. I know it was well worth it because now, in 2001, somebody was asking me, how much money do you want? How do you want a house? Do you want a car? Just tell us what you want, but do what we want you to do. And I'm looking at it, 2001 to now is 20 years. Where would the carcass of that car, where would it be if I had taken a car from them? And what kind of house were they going to give me? I mean, I have a house in the city where I'm giving, I'm participating in this interview. I have a very comfortable house. And this all happened with time. I paid my dues. So if they had given me a house 20 years ago, for crying out loud, I mean, would it have been worth it? And the answer is no. Clearly, it is no, no, no. It will not be worth it. What car would they have given me? How much money would they have given me? How many millions would they have given me that would be worth my reputation, my integrity, my legacy, and that of my family? Because in retrospect, you look back, life evolves. And my father used to say something in Igbo. There's this Igbo saying my father used to repeat. And if I translate it into English, what it means is a person should not rejoice that they didn't go to jail until the jailhouses have been shut down. I'm trying to do an interpretation.
Yes.
What it means is that we know where we're coming from, but we don't know where we're going. We don't even know how we'll end up. So you cannot today rejoice that, oh, I have achieved this, I have done that, I've been there, and so on, because you don't know what tomorrow holds. Mm-hmm. You see? So 20 years ago, I was going to be offered money, a house, a car, or whatever. Where would all these things have been now, 20 years on? Looking back, I realized I made the best decisions. Mm-hmm. And
because this was a struggle for your soul.
It was. It was
a struggle for the whole, it just boils down to what judging and the judiciary is about: independence.
Oh, no.